What is the cruelest prank you've ever seen? Story 1. I was 14 and going out to eat with my first girlfriend and my mom at Gym Boys. Just like 90% of 14-year-old males, I suffered from acne pretty badly. We were eating, having a good time, and out of nowhere, my mom looks at my girlfriend and asks, "Do you like popping bumps?" My eyes widened, and she knew I was horrified by her question. My girlfriend just got quiet and her face went red. She then proceeds to say, "What? It's not like she can't see them, and you need someone to do something about them." Then laughed, then got mad no one else thought it was funny, and ruined the rest of the evening. I could never understand doing something like that to my child. Story 2. I have no idea what radio station this was on, as I was only a kid, but they used to do prank phone calls. I have little to no recollection of many of them except this one, as even as a kid, I could tell it was just wrong. The radio host rang up a woman and advised that he was the manager of her husband's company, and he was very sorry to tell her that he had been involved in an accident with some heavy machinery, and it had resulted in his passing. As you would expect, the woman was wailing on the phone, and the radio host couldn't really get another word in to explain it was a joke, and then they just cut off the phone call and played a song. Even as a kid, I knew it was a really evil and cruel idea, and I'm pretty sure that was the last time they did a prank phone call. Story 3. At my high school, 100 years ago back in the 80s, some football players talked a special education kid into sneaking over and grabbing a girl's butt right in the middle of the main area during lunchtime with tons of people around. This kid was really well liked at the school, and it was perfectly obvious that he was only doing it because they were being nice to him. Luckily, the girl who was the victim talked to him really calmly and explained to him that it wasn't something nice to do, and that the kids who seemed nice were actually being mean to him. As I recall, the kid's teacher wanted him to go back to eating lunch in his class, but lots of students talked her down, and there was never another incident. He was still well liked. The girl who was pranked was a really popular and successful student, and while I didn't know her, she was a couple of years ahead of me, I knew enough about her to say with confidence that she had a great career ahead of her. Don't think anything happened to the football players. The story was stuck with me because 1. The cruelty of the prank based on manipulating a kid not able to understand he was being used, and 2. The poise and maturity of the girl who didn't get angry with the kid even though it happened to her in front of half the school. Story 4. I'll never forget it. A buddy and I were on a double date of sorts, though I was mainly winging it for him. The gal I was with, let's call her Kay, shared a heartbreaking story she thought was absolutely hilarious. In high school, Kay and her fellow cheerleaders invited the most ostracized girl in their class to a party as a joke. Said girl was overjoyed and couldn't believe it. She was dirt poor though. She ends up buying a new pair of overpriced jeans for the party, and it's obvious. She shows up with some of the tags still on them because she'll have to return them the next day. The cheerleaders notice and begin to plot. The 4 of us are sitting at dinner as Kay continues to relate what happened, laughing in fits. Someone had spilled an entire glass of red wine on a love seat at the party. Kay immediately sits down opposite the spill and beckons the poor girl to sit down next to her to chat. She does and immediately ruins the overpriced jeans. Everyone laughs as she runs out the door in tears. Kay casually finishes the story as a sizable lump formed in my throat. Sometimes it's the small, sharp cruelties that cut deepest. Story 5. A friend of a friend in high school had her boyfriend pretend that he'd passed away. He had one of his friends call her, saying he had gotten a car accident, and had someone else calling up pretending to be a doctor from the hospital. She was hysterical. Later that day, after she kept asking the fake doctor which hospital it was so she could be there, she found out it was all a prank to see if she cared. Horrible. Anyway, they broke up. To this day, it's the nastiest prank I've seen in person. Story 6. In 6th grade, I opened my locker and a note from the boy I had a crush on fell out, saying he liked me too. A bunch of girls in my grade were there when I found it and were super happy for me, or I thought they were. When I went to the boy to ask him about it, he said he didn't write it, and the group of girls who were there when I found the note had written it. I turned around, and sure enough, they were laughing. But it crushed me. Not that the boy didn't like me back, but because I didn't think these girls I'd gone to school with since 1st grade were that mean. A couple of weeks later, the group played a similar joke on one of the girls who was actually in on the prank against me, and I got a genuine apology from her after she realized how bad I must have felt. None of the other girls ever apologized. Story 7. The first time I met my brother's new girlfriend, she pulled me aside and started crying. She told me that she was pregnant, but my brother wasn't ready to tell anyone. She asked me to check up on him because he was really nervous. A couple of days went by, and I texted her to see how she was doing, and if my brother was doing okay, and if they needed anything. She asked me what I was talking about. I said, "The baby." She replied, "Oh, you believed me. I was only joking. I'm not pregnant. I can't believe you fell for that." That wasn't some teenager either. She was around 30. Yes, I told my brother. Yes, he still ended up marrying her. Almost 10 years later, I still refuse to trust her. Story 8. A group of girls at my high school told a girl that they were hanging out at one of their houses at 9 near a train station, but they really just made up a time and place that would make her stranded at the last train stop with no more trains home. Story 9. In high school, one of the cutest girls in my grade came up to me and told me she had a crush on me and wanted to go out on a date. I was skeptical because no one had ever asked me out before, but I was growing into my body pretty well and definitely more attractive than I was as an early teen, so I just figured puberty was doing some good work for me. We were 16 or 17 and had both just gotten our licenses, so she said she'd meet me at the movie theater and we'd go have dinner after the movie. I told my mom, and she got all excited and helped me pick out an outfit and took pictures of me before my first ever date. Cringe, but you know how it goes. I went and got a haircut and my car detailed so I'd be rolling fresh, you know. And believe me, I was looking tasty. Fresh shave, hair edged up sharp enough to cut glass. I was dripped out before the phrase even existed. So I show up at the theater a couple minutes early, and I'm waiting for her. And after like 15 minutes, I think maybe I'll call her to make sure she didn't have an emergency come up or something. We didn't have texting back then. So I call her, and she answers on speakerphone, and like 5 other girls are all laughing at me, saying things like, "Ha ha ha, he actually showed up." So yeah, it was all just a prank to hurt my feelings. Joke's on me, I guess. I was 16 years old at the time, and that was over 10 years ago. I'm 29 now, so the wound has more than healed. As far as I know, the goal of the prank was literally just to see if I believed her in an effort to hurt my feelings as punishment for not being cool enough, I suppose. I'm still not cool at all, but it works for me. Nerds are in fashion these days. Instead of going home, I ended up seeing The Dark Knight by myself, and, as you all know, that movie slaps. By the time Heath Ledger was doing his Scars monologue, I had forgotten why I was upset. Then I had dinner for one at Red Robin, which was absolute fire. I think I got a jalapeno something or another burger. I told the waitress I got stood up, and she told me I was very handsome, and I think about that compliment at least once a month. When I told my mom what happened, she got upset and then bought me a PS3. Last I remember, the girl in question ended up pregnant and missed high school graduation. No idea where she is now, but hopefully she's a better person and has a positive impact on those around her, and her son or daughter is happy and well raised. I've dated plenty of people since then, and I'm in a happy and healthy relationship now with proper communication and respect for each other. Story 10. My so-called friends had my mom drop me off at a mall, and we hang out until nearing my bedtime. Mind you, this was back when there were pagers, for the generation that grew up with smartphones, back before cell phones were something everyone had and used pagers. So I asked my friends when we are going back home, because my mom has talked to their mothers about someone dropping me off at home. My parents both worked. Anyways, they decided to tell me that their mom will pick them up from this door and I should go ahead of them. They left, and I was a 12-year-old lost kid in a mall with no parent. Luckily, one of the male school bullies saw me and was like, "Oi, nerd, what are you doing out here at this time?" And I just broke down crying. Kid just dropped the bullying and went, "Oi, oi, oi, what happened?" And according to my parents, I just blabbered everything in, and he told me to wait until he found a phone and paged my dad while calling his mom and telling her what happened. Needless to say, they got a frantic father going, "What happened?" And the girls said they told their mom that I saw my uncle and left with him. But to be honest, me and the bully became best friends. Story 11. In college, at the end of the year, a club I was in had a roast of the outgoing seniors. My friend running the roast couldn't come up with anything for one of the guys. Let's call him Ben. To drum up ideas, he called a bunch of Ben's closest friends, also in the club, and asked them for things to make fun of Ben about. Thinking this was a confidential conversation, they proceed to absolutely lay into Ben. The guy is seriously lame. Honestly, when I'm talking to a girl and he is there, it is supremely awkward. My friend simply recorded the whole conversation and played it outright for Ben's section of the roast, mortifying Ben and all his friends simultaneously. Story 12. This happened to me. In 7th grade, during Valentines Day, we had candygrams and cutesy stuff we could send to our friends, and obviously middle schoolers are sending them to their crushes. They would receive these candygrams during a class period as someone came by dropping them. You could write a little message and then who it's from. I got one from this guy friend I liked and went up to him the next period and brought it up and said it was really cute, thanks. He looked a little confused but was like, "No problem." I felt kind of dumb after that and walked away, just to find out the next day that it was one of my friends who sent it to me and just put his name on it to make it seem like it was him. I mean, at least he was nice enough to go along with it because he was just as confused. Story 13. Happened to me. Was at my first school dance in middle school. Was always the shy kid, so I was surprised when one of the popular chicks came to ask me to dance. I said no because I was shy, but I was elated that I got asked. A few minutes later, I'm in the bathroom stall, and a few kids come in and start talking about how they paid her $10 to ask me, and if I said yes, she would have just tripped me and made me look dumb. I never went to another dance all throughout middle and high school, even prom. Story 14. A group of friends got together, and one of the usuals, let's call him Eddie, didn't make it. Eddie texts asking what they're up to, and they sarcastically respond, "Celebrating your birthday without you." Lo and behold, it was coincidentally Eddie's birthday weekend, and he had no birthday plans. Upon realizing this, the group bought and decorated a cake that read, "Happy Birthday, Eddie," and staged a series of fake birthday party photos to make him think they forgot to invite him to his own party. To keep the prank going, they dropped off the smashed leftover cake on his doorstep. He still hasn't found out, so they keep making up elaborate stories as to why they forgot to invite him. Story 15. I may have conducted the cruelest prank without even meaning to. While in high school once a month or so, there was a half day on a Friday. It was posted and scheduled in advance. My friend and I liked to remind each other in the halls loudly that it was a half day when it wasn't the right week. Priceless and harmless prank. One week we did this, and I guess the right people overheard. A few kids' parents were bus drivers. They called their parents to remind them it was a half day. Somehow it snowballed, and at 11:30, buses had parked out front of every school in the district, and they had to cancel the other half of the day because the bus service drivers were pissed to find out they had to cancel their plans for no reason. The principal called me and my friend to the office and said he knew it was our fault, but no one fact-checked it, and so it wasn't really our fault. He smiled and sent us on our way to enjoy our half day. Story 16. A friend of mine had a crush on his coworker. It was sort of an open secret. His manager tried to help him, offered advice, some things to say, small gifts she might be into, etc. What no one knew at the time was that said manager and said coworker had recently started dating and hadn't told anyone yet. So he meant it as a prank on his new girlfriend to be put into these awkward situations. But my friend's feelings were really hurt when it all came out. Story 17. In middle school, a girl came up to us on the playground and told this dude to go see the principal, he's looking for you. He got a call about your mom. Then as soon as the dude ran away, she told us all she just made it up. It was horrible.